Hello, this is Daniel Mart, and today I'm going to be doing another Walking Dead video discussion topic, and this one's going to be for my top 10 favorite characters from the Walking Dead TV show. So, as you guys know, today, since it's already August 23rd, it's going to be the premiere of Fear the Walking Dead. So, in honor of it, I've decided to do my top 10 favorite Walking Dead characters. As I usually have with any top 10 video. I have a few honorable mentions. One of them, maybe two of them, you're gonna wonder as to why I put him and her in this list. One of them's there's three really questionable ones that you guys are gonna be as to why I put them on the list. But you know, my list, so I like them, but they're honorable mentions nevertheless. So yeah. So here are the honorable mentions. So at number 10, I decided to put in Morgan. So yeah, so thus far he's one of three survivors to still be alive that we've seen in the first episode. The other two being Carl and Rick. Anybody else you saw in the first episode, such as Dwayne and Lori, Andrea, whatever, they're dead. You know, Shane dead. Okay, so he's one of three characters still alive who were introduced in the first episode. Daryl and Carol weren't introduced till episode 2, by the way. And Glenn wasn't. Glenn is arguable. You could say he because of the tank at the end of the episode, but whatever. Um, is that really cool? I mean, he's only appeared in a handful of episodes. I mean, he appeared in the premiere episode. He appeared in season 3 and the episode Clear, and he did like 3 or 4. He did like 3 cameo appearances throughout season 5 to his big reveal at the season finale, and he came with a badass return. The only reason why he's so such low down on the list is because he despite the fact that he did get a lot of character development in Clear, there still is more to the character. We know more about other characters than we know of him. Now I do think that we will find out more of him, of what happened to him after Clear with Morgan in season 6, and they have confirmed that there is going to be a flashback episode in season 6. So could that be for Morgan? Possibly. Another theory is that could also be for Enid, but I think it's more likely for Morgan for that flashback episode. So that'd be very cool. So yeah, that's why I have to put at number 10 Morgan. Now on to number 9, which is at number 9, I put Maggie. First off, she's very hot. Let's get that out of the way. That really does help her. And she's she's Glenn's wife. That also helps her. But like realistically, she is one of the more badass chicks throughout all of The Walking Dead. I mean, when you think of the women in The Walking Dead, I mean, there's are a few badass chicks, you know, and Maggie definitely is one of them. You know, you also do have Michonne, Andrea, and more recently Carol. But you know, Maggie's like one of the original badass females, even from season 2. She was really badass. However, I do feel like in some of the recent seasons, she has been going down in my opinion. Like her, not personality, or more like her character arc has been going down a bit in my opinion. But overall, I still think she's a really great character in my opinion, with all the things that happened with her and Beth and Hershel, and stuff right after the prison. Does help a lot. So yeah, number 9 we have Maggie. Now at number 8 we have. Speaking of Maggie, at number 8 we have her husband, Glenn. So yeah, this is another character who's been since like the very beginning. And this one you can argue that we saw him, that he was also in the first episode, because like in the last 10 seconds we did hear his voice in the tank when he called Rick a dumbass. He's like, "Hey dumbass, you still there?" So you can argue that Glenn was there in the first episode to some degree. So yeah, but yeah, he's been there since the very beginning. He got one of the hottest chicks of The Walking Dead. Again, that really doesn't help. But you know, he's such a relatable guy in my opinion, because at the beginning of the apocalypse, or before the apocalypse, he was just regular pizza boy, dealing with debts and whatever. Because he did discuss that like during season 1 and 2 or whatever, at some point that he says, yeah, before the apocalypse I was doing a pizza delivery boy dealing with debts. And he was just dealing with debts, a college student possibly, and he was just trying to get by, and then the apocalypse just kind of happens, and all his world just goes to shit, and then he meets up with Maggie. And again, he is one of the more badass characters in my opinion. However, one of the things that I don't like about, I mean, it's one of those things that I do understand him, but it's like a double-edged sword. It's the fact that he doesn't kill anybody. Now, he has tried to kill people, you know. He's been in some of the shootouts and whatnot, but he's never really killed anybody, not even Nicholas. And let's be honest, Nicholas deserved to die like a fucker on multiple occasions, and Glenn had multiple occasions to kill him. So yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that's like, you know, you want him to kill somebody, but you understand where he's coming from. So yeah, I mean, that for me, that's like the one kind of hindrance, I guess, in a sense. I mean, I understand it, but like, just kill someone. Even if it's just Nick and you never do it again, I'll be really happy. Yeah, but you know, still pretty good. And let's be honest, he's like one of 2 Asians that we've seen in this whole show. Yeah, the only other Asian was one of the guys from the Governor's Men back in season 3, and Michonne killed him like in an instant. So yeah, I mean, diversity, it also helps. So yeah, now at number 7, right? We're at number 7, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and now at number 7 is number 7, Merle Dixon. Why don't you give a big hug to your old pal Merle? That line cracks me up. Yeah, Merle, let's be honest, he's like, being an amputee makes you pretty badass, okay? I mean, yeah, Hershel, he was an amputee too, that made him pretty badass. He's in my honorable mentions, okay? The only other person to, I mean, okay, I know technically Merle didn't survive a zombie bite. He had to cut his hand off. But even the fact that he did that, he was handcuffed. Walker's chomping like about 5 feet away from him, and what does he decide to do? Get a hacksaw and fucking saw his hand off, and then like manages to find, then takes down 2 walkers, manages to find an oven, uses his belt to lessen the pain or whatever, and manages to survive long enough for the governor to find him. That's pretty badass, okay? And he's got like he's within like the top 3 most people murdered or whatever. He's killed a lot of people, okay, when you think about it. I mean, the governor has the most at almost 50, but Merle said that he killed about 30 people with the governor. And I know many people don't consider this canon, but I like to think of it as canon. But if you include the video games into that too, he's killed almost just as much, maybe even a bit more people than the governor. If you include the video game they did with Daryl and Merle about 2 or 3 years ago. So yeah, and plus that saw, it's not a saw, but it has a knife. It's amputated. It has a stump. It has a knife. That's pretty fucking cool. Like, he meets up with the Andrew and he just gets his walker and that was dope. And then his death, an epic death. Let's be honest. No character on the show has gone out more epically than Merle has. Shoots out 8. She kills 8 of the governor's men, and then just gets beating the shit out of him at the governor. Pretty badass. I'm begging for you. I'm begging, and then Daryl has to put him down. That was sad. That was sad. But yeah. And now at number 6 we have and at the number 6 spot we have the governor. Let's be honest. Out of any Walking Dead character, he probably has the most interesting story throughout all of them, second to Morgan. Okay. I mean, let's be honest. He loses his daughter, manages to find Woodbury, takes control of Woodbury, makes it to this seemingly sanctuary, while at the same time taking over other groups, killing them all and taking their supplies. At some point, runs into Merle, then runs into the prison group, or he's Glenn and Maggie, and then the whole prison battle and all that. About 2 prison battles, kills his whole group, becomes stranded, you know, burns out of Woodbury, kind of just wanders around for about a year, finds Tara and her group, kills one of the members. I mean, granted, he was zombified, but whatever. Goes out in search of a larger group or just a better sanctuary, runs into Martinez again, and kills Martinez and takes over of that group as well, and then leads another coalition versus the prisoners. Yeah, and let's be honest, probably the best villain we've had in The Walking Dead. Because some of the other villains, I mean, if you take it season by season, the first villain, if anything, for season 1, aside from the Walkers, you could argue that the Battles were villains, but not really. I mean, the closest thing we had to a villain in season 1 was Ed. Was Ed, Carol's husband. Not really that big of a villain, and not really that big of a threat, just kind of an idiot. For season 2, it was Shane, more of an anti-hero, however. Season 3, the governor. Season 4, it was the governor as well. And then towards the end, it was the Terminus people, and I put Gareth as an honorable mention. For season 5, we had the Terminus people again, honorable mention in that, and then we had Dawn. And then, oh yeah, in season 4, we also had Joe's group. They were pretty good too, but up until now, the governor is the best villain we've had. Let's see how Negan holds up within a season or two, or whenever he's introduced. So yeah, Negan's gonna be interesting, and then out for like in 10 years. But yeah, right now, I don't know. Maybe am I lying? Putting the governor at number 6? I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't chop my head off too soon. Now at number 5, we have speaking of villains and anti-heroes and anything in between, number 5, Shane. He's basically the first person who realized he's basically the first character in all of The Walking Dead who realized how to survive. He basically knew how to survive before anybody else. He was the most willing to kill. He was basically battle hardened from the start. I mean, he knew what to do, didn't give a shit as long as he could protect the people he wanted or he needed to protect. Carl and Lori primarily, and himself. He was all good. He didn't really give a shit. I mean, and let's be honest, the confrontation between Rick and Shane in 18 Miles Out and Better Angels, that was interesting as well. And again, he's one of the few people who, at the beginning, were willing to kill. I mean, Rick, it took him a while to develop that killer instinct, and when he finally did it, it was yes, it was for protection, but he still kind of struggled with it. It wasn't until like Dave and Tony kind of just drew on him. I mean, again, Hershel, he killed, I think, he killed one guy from their group. I mean, Glenn hasn't really killed anybody. I mean, if you count like the first 2 seasons, Shane, he killed Otis. He was willing to kill Rick. So yeah, I mean, Hershel, he killed one person in season 2. Rick killed 2 people. Dave and Tony, and aside from that, I really can't think of anybody else who killed within the first 2 seasons. Yeah, I mean, you could argue Jenner committed suicide, and as well as Jackie because of the explosion, but that's a whole different issue. But yeah, I mean, Shane, he was the first one to actually realize how this world was, and that led to some pretty cool scenes, and just the dynamic between him, Lori, and Rick, and all that. How he kind of had to deal with Carl kind of being bedridden and all of that. That was again all very interesting and really great action. And by the way, John Bernthal, after The Walking Dead, he's done some pretty great stuff. Wolf of Wall Street to Mob City. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. He's gonna be in this other movie called We Are Friends. He's been pretty busy since The Walking Dead, okay? So if anything, I think The Walking Dead helped his career as well. So congratulations to the guy, really great actor. He has a movie called We Are Friends coming out. I think I don't know if it already came out or if it's coming out this week or next week or whatever, but I really want to see that. Just because he's in it. I know I think Zac Efron's also in that movie. So I don't know. It's something about parties. From what I can tell, but he's in that movie. Really interested to see it. So yeah, Shane, really great character, played by a great actor. Austin Fury, great movie from last year. So yeah, on to my number 4, which would have to be. So at number 4, I decided to put Michonne. So, yeah. First off, one of the few black people that's still on the show. That's literally like most of the comments I ever see on Michonne. One of the few black people who's ever on the show. It's really weird how racism works like that. Okay, nobody ever mentions the really minor amounts of Asians on the show. They never notice how they killed off so many white guys on the show, but you kill off one black people and people lose their shit. That's kind of funny. I'm not gonna deny it. That's kind of funny. But yeah, Michonne, first off, she carries a fucking samurai sword. Um, okay, that's pretty cool on itself. I mean, she's one of the few characters who has her own definable weapon. I mean, aside from Daryl, and I guess you could argue Rick. I mean, aside from Daryl, Tyreese, and I guess you could argue Rick and Sasha because of the type of gun they use. She's one of the few characters, who that the sword has become a part of her. And again, like the governor, this is a character you kind of want to find out what happened to her before the apocalypse. Well, again, we saw some of that in season 4, I believe, or season 5, with some of the flashbacks, with her child and whatnot. And we do know a bit of her, what happened to her right during the apocalypse, that her husband and her friends died, or whatever, as well as the child, and how they died. But it's kind of interesting to see what happened in between that time. Between the time that of the apocalypse and when she found Andrea, and from the time of Andrea till the beginning of season 3, you kind of want to know what happened. Now, I was originally going to put her a little bit higher on this list, however, like at number 3, maybe number 2, but some of the recent decisions they've done with her character, such as beating Rick up, pretty big one there, kind of unforgivable at this point. They really haven't given us a good explanation as to why they did it. They kind of gave us this really vague, generic explanation, like, oh, he was going to do something stupid, yeah, but he really didn't explain it. So, yeah, I mean, I probably would have put her at least in number 3, but still, number 4, top 5, she's still in my top 5 regardless. Pretty great character in my opinion, really good. And again, same thing with Maggie, one of the more badass females. Now, going on to another badass female at number 3, we have Carol. Carol. So yeah, at number 3 we have Carol Peletier, I believe is how you say her last name. Um, so yeah, kind of weird how this is the first character whose last name I've mentioned. I mean, we've had Maggie. I mean, yeah, because right now from number 10 to number 3, we have Morgan Jones, Maggie Greene, Glenn Rhee, Merle Dixon, the governor Phillip something, Phillip Blake, and Shane Walsh. Michonne's last name hasn't been revealed, so there's that. But now we have Carol Peletier. Funny how I just kind of realized I haven't used anybody's last name. Yeah, talk about, similar to Shane, talk about being Battleborn ready, badass. I mean, for her, it did take her a while for her to become Battleborn. We really didn't see her become kind of Battleborn or be kind of ready for the apocalypse up until season 3. But then, when she started firing a gun, and then in season 4, holy shit, when season 4 kind of hit, she was teaching kids how to use knives and guns and defend themselves. I mean, and let's be honest, she's probably gone through some, second to Michonne and maybe even Rick, she's gone through the most shit in this apocalypse. I mean, she started off with her abusive husband. Her abusive husband dies, and she kind of bashes his brains in. She loses her daughter afterwards, and after that, she sees T-Dog getting bit like 3 times over. After that, finds out that Lori dies. Up until then, season 4 happens. She gets kicked out of the prison group after killing 2 members of her own group. Has to also endure the fact that Lizzie is sick. Later has to put down Lizzie because she killed Mika, and that she has to. And then season 5 rolls around. Season 5 she becomes a real badass. She blows up Terminus. That really does help her. Then I guess she gets knocked out, puts in the hospital, but then she returns back to the group. So yeah, she's gone through some of the most shit. And it's kind of cool to see that character evolution, because again, out of any character, I think she's had the most evolution, being this mousy, scared, fearful little lady, that nobody really thought was gonna survive past like season 3, to like one of the most badass women. And yeah, and the pixie cut really does work for her. Okay, pretty good. Okay, and yeah, she's one of the few people also to brave enough to use the guts trick. Put zombie blood all over you. That's pretty good. So yeah, Carol, really great character. Really went up in the polls in my opinion after season 5, because in season 4 I thought, yeah, she's a pretty good character. Honorable mentions, maybe like somewhere between number 7 and 10. At the end of season 5, she's in my top fucking 3, and she's nothing like her comic book counterpart. Let's be honest, because the comic book counterpart can be like, it's so different from what it is on TV show. Okay, is like way off. Because in the comics, she's like the mousy little lady from like season 1 and 2. In the comics, she is a bit hotter. Okay, she has long blonde hair, so she's hotter. She's a bit younger, but she basically commits suicide. Okay, I know she basically commits suicide. Okay, here no suicidal thoughts that we can see. Depressing thoughts. She's been in depression, but at times, but no suicide. So good for her. Yeah, couldn't be way off from the comics. Now number 2, this one, number 2 and 1. This one was hard, but some of them may expect one thing from number 2 and one thing from number 1. However, this is how it's gonna be. So at number 2, I decided to put on. For number 2, I decided to put on Rick Grimes. So many people may have thought that my number 1 would have been Rick Grimes, and my number 2 option would have been my number 2 option. Right now, my number 1 option is what most people probably thought was my number 2 option. I'm not gonna say who he or she is, so it's pretty obvious if you've been keeping up with this list. Okay. So yeah. So why do I have Rick Grimes at number 2? The only reason I have Rick Grimes at number 2, and the reason he's not number 1, is because he's a comic book character. We more or less know how his arc is gonna be. We more or less know what's gonna happen to him. Now, there are some things that aren't ever gonna happen to Rick, such as his hand getting cut off. But for the most part, we know how his story arc is gonna be throughout the whole Walking Dead show. Why? Because it's based on a comic. Now, that's not to say he's a bad character. He's a fantastic character, great lead character. For The Walking Dead, in my opinion, really good. You know, his son gets shot. His best friend tries to kill him for his wife. His wife doesn't really trust him anymore. She has a baby and then dies. You know, he's been through a lot of shit. Okay, so yeah, and again, he's a really badass guy. The beard really makes him badass. When he shaved for like the first time in season 5, I was like, what the fuck? I'm not gonna lie, but. And again, he's not. And after like season 3 and after like season 2 and once he got to season 3, he really didn't. He had the killer instinct again. Yeah, no problem taking out Tomas. Yeah, no problem taking out. Well, he didn't really kill Andrew, but he thought he did at that moment. So he had no problem doing that. You know, he had no problem killing Pete. He has no problem killing people. He went against the governor in the fist fight. That's gotta help you for a lot, okay? Now the only reason why he's not at my number 1 spot is because he's based on a comics. He's a comic book character. Okay? We more or less know how his arc is gonna be. We more or less know how his future is gonna be when he'll die, once he dies in the comics. Yeah, it's been confirmed that eventually Rick Grimes will die in the comic book series, but right now he's still alive. But we more or less know what's gonna happen. He's eventually gonna take over the Alexandria safe zone and all that good stuff. Right now we're kind of in the process of that. Okay. But overall, still pretty one of the best characters of The Walking Dead. You know, at number 1, you guys may be thinking, you know, either A, he doesn't like him at all, B, he completely forgot about him, or C, he's the number 1 spot. At number 1, the one and only. Call me a fanboy. I don't give a shit. Okay? I do not give a shit. Okay? Okay, Daryl Dixon is popular enough to have his own video game. Okay? One of 3 characters in all of The Walking Dead to be able to carry out. Actually, one of 2 characters able to carry out their own video game. Him and Shane. Yeah, Shane has that mobile app. There's a mobile app with Shane as a main character. It's a small video game. It's like you can play it like in 5, maybe 10 minutes. Okay, but you know, Daryl Dixon, he's one of the few. He's like the only character to hold his own video game, second to Shane, and one of 4 characters from the Walking Dead TV show to appear in video games. The other 2 are Shane, obviously, Daryl, his brother Merle, and Glenn. Though Glenn is debatable because it's technically the comic ones, and same thing with Hershel, technically the comic book version of them, but whatever. And Maggie, I think, was in that game too. Whatever. So yeah, also the crossbow, dude, that crossbow does help a lot. And even despite the crossbow, how many badass kills has that guy had? He's killed zombies with fucking golf clubs and car trunks. Okay, he's blown up a grenade for God, blown up a tank with a grenade for God's sakes, and taken out and then took out Mitch with his crossbow. Okay, pretty fucking badass. I mean, what else is there to say about Daryl? I mean, he's the epitome of the Walking. Well, he's not the epitome, but he's one of those things that makes The Walking Dead so popular, and even the actor himself, Norman Reedus, makes the shows so great. You know, if you see this, anything like his attitudes at SuperCon or whatever, or MegaCon, whatever, or San Francisco Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con. Sorry, I mean, you just see how much he loves the show, and that again transcends to the characters, to the character. I mean, you know, if the actor or actress loves the role that they're portraying, that does show in the character. And again, Norman Reedus loves characters, so it shows in that. And again, you know, he had to take out Merle Dixon, and that was, you know, that was kind of heartbreaking. And again, I talked about it back with Merle back at number 7, and I'm talking about it now again. You know, it is heartbreaking for him to have to kill Merle. You know, and even after that, you know, it's heartbreaking for him to lose Carol twice. Okay, you know, he's had so many heartbreaking moments. You know, losing prison, and he's always been kind of an outsider, even especially in Alexandria. He's always been kind of an, especially now that we see it in Alexandria, he's kind of more of an outsider. And similar to Aaron and Eric, he's able to relate to them because they're also outsiders. And yeah, I mean, one of the most badass characters throughout all of The Walking Dead, in my opinion, definitely the best one. And again, the only reason why he's one of the few reasons, or one of the many reasons, one of the few many whatever reasons, one of the reasons why he's over Rick. One of the reasons why Rick is not number 1 and why Daryl is number 1 is because Rick is based on a comic book character. Daryl is not, and that it just brings, it's so unpredictable. We don't know what could happen with the character. I mean, but you compare him to someone like Rick, we know more or less what's going to happen. Now, that's not to say every single comic book character is portrayed by verbatim. I mean, look at Carol, Tyreese, and Morgan. They're not really like the comic book characters, okay? But, you know, Daryl, he's an entity of himself. He's not in the comic books, okay? So, yeah. Basically, that's it. You know, Daryl is the best Walking Dead character of all time, in my opinion, as of now. Okay, I'm pretty sure that will change maybe in the future. So yeah, just to go over the list once more, at honorable mentions. At my honorable mentions, I decided to put in honorable mentions. I decided to put in Abraham, Eugene, Dale, Hershel, Milton, Tyreese, Sasha, Carl, Lizzie, and Gareth. At number 10, Morgan. Number 9, Maggie. Number 8, Glenn. Number 7, Daryl. Number 6, the Governor. Number 5, Shane. Number 4, Michonne. Number 3, Carol. Number 2, Rick. And number 1, Daryl. So yeah, that's basically it for my top 10 list on the top 10 best or favorite Walking Dead TV show characters. What are your top 10 favorite Walking Dead characters from the TV show? Comment on that down below, let me know. Like the video, share on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, or whatever you guys prefer. Subscribe. I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, and comic book reviews. Comment down below on your thoughts on the top 10 best Walking Dead characters from the TV show. And aside from that, that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart signing off, and don't forget to watch the first episode of Fear the Walking Dead that premieres at 9 at AMC August 23rd, 2015. It may start an hour earlier at 8 because they're doing some season 6 footage, or showing off some season 6 footage. So that'd be pretty cool too. So, you know, look out for all of that. And yeah, that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart signing off.